Okay, I want to show you about embedding audio and video in an HTML document, and I also want to show you about using social media icons. Let's do social media icons first. So the file I have up here right now, we've used over and over again. I just duplicated a bunch of paragraphs in here to make it a little bit longer. This is not part of this exercise. You see, I do have the banner on the top. Actually, a much nicer one than I made in the exercise example I did for you earlier. This is from doing it some past time. And what else? Oh yeah, I have some social media icons down at the bottom. Now, you are required on the bottom of every page to have contact information, but I strongly suggest you have social media information links also. Yes, you could do them as plain text, and that's fine, but I think you should consider doing them as social media icons. Now, how are you going to get them icons? You have to make them? Well, if you have those abilities and you want to, that's fine, but I don't, and I wouldn't spend that kind of time. Instead, if you just do a web search for free social media icons, you're going to get a lot of examples. There's a lot of free social media icons out there. The key thing is, of course, you want to try to have them match your color scheme, the theme, and the feeling, the mood of your resume. So they shouldn't jump out and be glaring and be distracting. Yet it is a neat way to of course, to display that stuff. Now, I already showed you social media icons a little bit in the SVG exercise, and you may very well get SVG ones, and you can use them as I did there. But many times you have other files. Sometimes they come in a variety of examples of file types. They might be just little JPEGs, they might be little PNGs. They might be individual files. They might be a big file you have to slice up. Like if it's a big bunch of JPEGs or PNGs, you may have to open it up in Photoshop and just select and cut out the ones you want to use or so on. So there's different ways you might get them, depending on what they are. So I'm going to leave that up to you, finding them, going through links, thinking about what's going to work for you. Eventually, one way or the other, you're going to get some files, as I did. And in fact, if I go to my folder, which I have way too many things in here, I found these 1, 2, 3 little PNGs here. Okay, so I have them sitting here, and I'll just show you what I did. I'm not going to so much do it. I of course put them in the HTML down here in this area, which I gave a div with an ID of social. Okay, and I put them in IMG, 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 and I size the IMG with width right there. This is an IMG also. But notice this IMG, of course, has a link around it, right? So when I click on it, I will go to the thing. I haven't linked to Twitter and YouTube yet, but I could, right? So what did I do to make them? Obviously, I used the width to size them because they likely, whatever you get, are likely going to be a way too big a size. And I guess this is one of the few examples where I would say it's okay because they're pretty small files to begin with to actually size them with a width as long as you're not making them bigger than they appeared. All right, and the CSS, I took that div, oops, where is it? Here it is, the ID of social, and I gave it a margin of 0 and auto and a width of 170 pixels. So I gave that whole thing the width that would have enough space in it to hold all three of those icons, 50 plus 50 plus 50 plus the space in between. Now you could just as easily use Flexbox for this too, and you should be able to realize how you would do that. So now when I run it, here we have them. The whole div is what's centered, and the individual items are sitting there like that. And of course I have this one is a link. If I click on it, I'll go to the Facebook page. And you'd have to link the others also. And you might have different ones, and how many, lots more of them or something too. And I don't have down there the other contact information and the copyright line, but you need to have those too. Okay, but what I really want to show you was the idea of embedding video, okay, and audio files. Now you can, and in fact you can read in your textbook about ways you can directly embed them, and you could like put the video or the audio file in a folder and kind of as if you're kind of like hosting it yourself. But that wouldn't be a really good solution, I don't think. if you read about that stuff in the textbook, which is, I believe, well, you can find it in the textbook. It's not one of the chapters we've covered. You'll see that the problem is that different operating systems, different browsers, different computers need different kinds of ways to handle different file types, for instance. And that's one of the biggest reasons that things like YouTube and SoundCloud and so on are so useful and so universally used, is that they handle all the problems with different file types and different computers and different browsers and so on by creating a player that is just used by everybody. And it can be a player that's embedded in a web document, as we'll do, and then you have a choice to go from there right to YouTube, for instance, or SoundCloud or something. So I would suggest that instead of actually putting the video file or the audio file in your folder and actually sticking it from there on your website directly, that you go put it on YouTube or Vimeo or something like that, or if it's audio file on SoundCloud or Stitcher or somewhere like that, and then you embed the supplied file from them. Let them handle the files. Another reason to do this in the real world is that video files in particular, and audio to some degree, but mostly video files, can get to be enormous. And you have to, if you're actually hosting you have your own website, you paid for someplace, you've rented space to put it, we call it hosting it, from a service. The more stuff you put up, the more it costs you for all that stuff to sit there. So that's another reason to do that. So I've got YouTube up right now. Do I? Yes, there I do. And what I have here is one of the exercises you just had to watch. A half hour on banner exercises. Wow, it's a half an hour. That's amazing. So this is what you would do. And you may have already done this, but if you go to share, one of our choices, we're given a link we could just share with people, but one of the choices we have is embed. Embed is the choice we want. And sometimes in some programs, you might actually have some other more advanced features for how to choose the embed. One thing of the few things that we got here, we have a few choices. Show player controls. Yes, I think we want that. And if we wanted it to start at only a certain place, we could put that in here too. But I'm just going to select that whole thing by clicking in there, and I'm going to copy it. This is the embed code, and I can get rid of that for now and go back into my Notepad++, and I'm going to stick it someplace. I'm going to stick it down here, someplace in between a few of these paragraphs. So that's a big long code. It's an iframe, and I'll let you research iframes more yourself a little bit. It's actually a very old web technology. It's like creating like a window within the window, within the screen kind of, where something else is being shown through it. And it has a width and a height, which you could change. And then it does some other things too, like it allows autoplay and so on. And you could learn about what these things are and even edit these directly if you wish. The key thing is, though, it has this link, which has to be right. I'm going to save and run it. Okay, so this has created a YouTube player here, which then I could click on. I could watch the video right here. Or I could, of course, go to YouTube and watch it there. Now imagine you had this on your gallery page, and you had like 6 videos you wanted to put there. You could actually use Flexbox, for instance, to make them into a little video gallery, a gallery of different videos there, right? So that would be an option. Alternatively, I'll get rid of that stupid thing. You could make it bigger, right? As long as you keep these proportions roughly, 560 by 315, you could make it larger, and then you could make it fill more of the screen and be more visible for people right there to watch too. So I'll let you play with those if you wish. Now, what about another service like SoundCloud, for instance? I have a SoundCloud account here, and I've gone to one piece that I have in my SoundCloud account. And again, I'm going to share. And one of the choices it gives me is embed. And SoundCloud, like some services, gives me a choice of the type of player I like to have represented there. So I'd have to have the pro account to use that one. But I'm going to use this one. I could choose colors. I could continue on and on. And I want to, eventually I'm just going to click that and copy it and go jam it into my HTML. That's all there is to it. And I'll stick it in here, why don't I? Sure. That is a big long piece of code, isn't it? But again, it's an iframe, open iframe, close iframe, and it's putting a bunch of other information about fonts and styles and so on and so forth, and the name of the thing and so on, because it's a bit more than just a player, right? But again, you could change these numbers up here. And it's really big and long. In fact, it's actually at 100%. You could use percent to size this one too, actually. And of course, I could listen to it right here, or I could go to SoundCloud and look at it there. Please think about if you have audio and video, using this idea when you're working on your gallery page.